Okay, we are recording. Louis, how are you today?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, I'm just going to try and get rid of this. There we go. Yeah, hi.
Wonderful, wonderful. It looks like you're at home. Where's home these days?
It's in London, in sort of kind of near between Dalston. Well, I won't say exactly where it is, but it's
Yeah, I don't need the postcode. If I just pop around Louis now. Right. Well, look, thanks ever so much for giving up your time today, mate. And I'm really looking forward to having this chat today. But I kick things off the same way of every podcast. And Louis, can you tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please?
um I've chosen Sound and Vision, and I think it's kind of because it's a fantastic song in itself, um, and it's one of those songs that I think it's such a strong song that I think I liked it before I even heard it. I heard somebody sing it as a kid. I heard somebody sing it in the toilets at school. An older boy was singing it. Little blue, electric blue, and I was like, "That's great," and then I got to hear the real thing and stuff. But you know, uh, I think that in itself is incredible. That it's got that power to translate on a level where you don't even have to hear the record. It's that good a tune and that good a lyric. But also, but it's also fantastic. There's a lot of songs that have good intros, but this one, and some songs that have good intros that it sort of sets up the rest of a great song. But this one, it's great in itself. The intro goes on for I don't know how long, minute, 2 minutes or something, and it's fantastic in itself. It's a great listen, even, and then the vocals come in. It's like, wow, it gets better. So uh, yeah, I love that. And I think it's about, the song's about quite a dark period, Bowie, I think, and yet it's got some sort of lightness about it, which I love.
For me, it's like the payoff comes with when the synth line comes in that intro. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm interested because you did send an honourable mention over as well for this, which is far more instant. And I don't know if you want to sort of shout that one out as well, Louis.
I think I suggested as well the Jackson 5. I Want You Back.
Yeah. I mean, that don't mess around, does it? That's straight to it.
It's like straight in, isn't it? It's great, and I still, I must have heard that, before I don't think I was aware of it when it came out, but I heard it when I was very young, and it's still, I don't know if it's cool or not. It's just great to me. It's just joy, it's pure joy. Yeah.
Two very different intros there, Louis. And, with Sound and Vision, it's that kind of journey to get the payoff of when Bowie's voice kicks in and such. Whereas the Jackson, it's bang straight from the off. So I'm interested in you as a songwriter to kind of get, because when Kinky Machine come out, when Rialto come out, the way that people were getting their music was way different to how people get their music now. So, I watch how my kids get their music, and it's, they're coming to me with records that I just think, hang on, that was when I was young. It's, oh yes, gone off on TikTok, and obviously we're seeing, I guess, a majority of people utilising streaming services like Spotify and such, where rather than trying to get your track on the evening session, you want to be on the right playlists on Spotify and stuff like that. And I'm interested to know how many of these kind of trends and movements in how people get their music filter through into your creative process.
I don't, well, only in as much as I suppose I'm, my kids play me stuff. My son plays me stuff that I wouldn't have come across otherwise, and introduces me to artists, from hip hop to sort of Taylor Swift, and what I think is great, what I do think is great about streaming, one of the few, there are a lot of bad things about it, but I think one of the great things is this sort of democratization of the listening sort of experience, or whatever. It's like you've got it all. You can have anything you want, and I think that has made kids and people less bothered about the chronology of music, and it's just about whether it's any good, and that's, you know, I find that quite encouraging. That it's, you know, I think growing up, it was all about, unless a record was hugely successful and was hanging around the charts for ages, you're not really likely to find it a few months after it's come out, because whatever, I don't know what they did with them. They sent them back to the, you know, they were sold out. They didn't sell out, maybe they went back to the label or got around. I don't know what happened, but there wasn't the space to have much more. So everything had this kind of this momentary thing, which was cool in a way, but in another way, I think it was it's a shame, because all these things slipped through the cracks and were lost. And at least there's a potential to find them now, and kids, well, all of us kind of, you know, discover stuff that perhaps we wouldn't have before.
Tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please, Louis.
This is a hard one, because there are so many, you know, and I, you know, there's sort of early childhood memories of, you know, and I thought, first of all, there's a song called Sympathy by Rare Bird that my dad used to play, which is, I think, in the late 60s, and it's quite a sort of, I don't know, listen to it, and I can see how it sort of informed my own writing, particularly melodically, but it's a bit of a sad song, and I suppose that hit me because it romantic. You know, I wasn't too young to sort of understand any sort of romantic kind of stuff going on in lyrics, but that just seemed to have a it sort of I understood what it was about. It was about empathy and everything, and but actually the one I've chosen is Let 'Em In by Wings, because I love that still. And I remember being in my friend's back garden with him. We were fixing his bicycle, then we were trying to fix a puncture. The sun was out. I guess it was 1976. I was very, you know, I'm old, but I was pretty young still then. And it was a very hot summer. And I just remember that song. It was a very happy moment, but that elevated it even more, I think. And it's still it's still a cracking tune to me. That.
And so to pinpoint that emotion, it would have been happiness.
Yeah.
You mentioned there that the other track that you said your dad would play. Tell me a little bit about home growing up, and was it a musical house?
My dad's taste on the whole was more things like Al Green, Marvin Gaye, more, you know, what we might call soul or R&B now, but all that 60s and 70s stuff, really. My mum's, and I loved all of that, and my mum's taste was much more Dylan, Van Morrison, you know, Neil Young, stuff like that, and they had quite separate. I had sort of quite separate sort of split upbringing, I guess, and so I would get, you know, different things in
I mean, you're getting the best of both worlds right there.
I think I was very lucky. Many of that's one of them. Yeah, definitely. You know, and you know, I think it took me a while to get Dylan, but it was always there. You know, I mean, I remember my mum was and still is such a Dylan freak that we camped on the pavement to queue for tickets to see him. You know, with a long line of sort of unwashed other folk. And I wonder if that was 76 as well, because it was hot. But yeah, yeah, definitely I had it. And I also had a lot of encouragement, particularly from my mum. As soon as I was interested in doing music, my mum was very, you know, got me an acoustic guitar pretty swiftly. Yeah.
And as much as, you know, there was all that, you know, that the kind of, I guess, the sort of folk influence and more of the, I guess, the more serious kind of singer-songwriter stuff like Van Morrison and Dylan and such. But can you see it now, like the influence of the kind of the Motown and the soul stuff and the sort of pop sensibilities of that as filtered through into your songwriting?
I would say so. I would say I'm interested. I think I've always, whether I admitted it at times or not, I've always just been interested in writing a good pop song.
Yeah.
A good tune that you can carry with you without actually having to play it. And I'm still trying to write that thing. And so I'm sure all of that did. Yeah, you're right. My dad's taste probably involved things that were more sort of 3-minute based, and mine might have been a bit more rambling, but there's a poetic side to stuff that my mum liked that I think had some influence on me, in that I just felt like, okay, lyrics can be, lyric, there can be a certain depth to lyrics that maybe you can get more out of them the more you listen to them, rather than just sort of on first take.
Yeah. Let's stay in the formative years. Tell me the song, please, for track 3, Louis, that reminds you of your time at school.
This is a hard one, because it is a hard one, but I think I've chosen Pretty in Pink by the Psychedelic Furs. The original version, there was a terrible version that came out like about 6 years after that, I think. But I think there's something about them that at the time I liked this. There was a kind of mystery to them. There was a kind of devil may care kind of thing in his voice. He sounded sort of intelligent, but I didn't really know what he was on about. They maybe sounded like they were going to the kind of parties that I wish I was going to, or, it was sort of, and there's a sort of dissonance as well. It's a pop song really, but there is a dissonance in the guitar playing and some of the other stuff, and I think that offsetting the prettiness with something that's a little bit more kind of edgy appealed to me. And yeah, I think it's that's something that I don't really listen to now, but if it came on, I'd really think of my youth and mates who also like that and stuff.
He looked and moved like a pop star as well. He looked so cool.
Didn't he? I mean, now I can see the Bowie influence. At the time,
massive.
I didn't notice it, you know.
But
they definitely had something. I think before, I mean, they had some great, well, at that point, I think they were quite an arty sort of band, and I think I came across them through some older kids who played the record or whatever. But that wasn't, at that point, that wasn't going to get on Radio 1, but it still had enough kind of pop sort of melody or whatever it was to an attitude that to grab me, and yeah, years later they re-recorded it for an American big teen movie. I think it's called Pretty in Pink, which I never saw, but the recording of it was atrocious in my
it's not shiny, isn't it?
I mean, I by that time I guess I was sort of over them anyway, but and now but I can remember hearing that and just thinking, oh my God, that is absolutely awful. I'd moved on. Having said that, they had, and Love My Way is another fantastic.
I literally saw the video to that about 3 days ago, and that's what, as soon as you said that, that's what made me think, in that video where he's dancing around.
Yeah.
It just looks so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I liked the artwork of that album, and I think they I suppose they straddled a few different things. It was sort of new wavy, but it had I don't know, whatever it was about them. I still think that's a great tune. Actually, when I hear Pretty in Pink, it's still got that magic.
Absolutely. Did you enjoy school, Louis?
Not really. I think I was, from a very young age, I was very, from the age of about 9 or 10, I think I was playing the guitar, and really that was what I was interested in. And I was interested in going to art college because I thought that was where I would meet other musicians in a band with. And so academic stuff, wasn't really the whole. I think I was happiest in those years. I was happiest sort of actually in the bathroom playing the guitar, because the acoustics were good.
Yeah.
And I I think life sort of opened up, I think, much more after school for me, yeah, I would say.
Was there ever any kind of other options that you was considering, or was music always the focus?
Um,
I mean, what did you tell the careers officer?
Sorry?
What did you tell the careers officer?
Well, I studied graphic design, but my heart wasn't in it really, and I sort of I had my sights from the age of about 12. I had a plan in my head. I was going to finish school. I was going to go to art college. I was going to get a band together. I was going to get a record deal. Which actually all of it, all of it happened. It was the next bit. I should have made a plan for the next bit. But yeah, so I was pretty, I was unwavering, really. I was unwavering to the extent that I think other friends of mine probably at times thought, why is he staying in, doing some music when he could be out doing this or that? I just,
Was you confident?
I wasn't hugely confident. No, I don't think I was. I think I wasn't actually. And learning the guitar, I had this fantastic teacher for a couple of years from the age of about 10 to 12 or 11 to 13, something like that, who was in the band Hawkwind, and he lived not far away, and we just found his number in a local music shop. Didn't know who he was, but I clicked with him. His name's Hugh Lloyd Langton. He passed away sadly a few years ago. He was in Hawkwind and actually had taken some time out, and I think he'd had a really bad acid trip and sort of walked away from the band for a bit. But I clicked with him. He was a really sweet, lovely guy, and that was my thing that I think I looked forward to the most every week, was going around to his flat. And I'd had a couple of lessons at school, or maybe a term of lessons, and they had tried to teach me things that I wasn't interested in learning. And whereas with you, he was like, okay, what do you like? And we would just learn old songs or songs about the Specials, or and we didn't have to say a lot. He just had a very I think that was I suppose, sometimes people talk about that with school teachers. There's somebody that kind of gets them. And I think Hugh kind of got me without really saying very much. He made me feel good.
Where was all this happening, Louis? Where was home and school?
That was in London, in my mum's house. I was in Ladbroke Grove.
Like fond memories of growing up around London?
Very, very much so, yeah. And that was a nice, there was, we had a lot of people would come around to the house, some musicians and stuff. People would sort of pass through quite a lot. People might stay for a bit. School wasn't really a priority for my mum. She probably wouldn't like me to say this now, but I think she allowed me to focus on things that weren't academic, and that I might stay up late playing the guitar, and that was all right. And actually, sometimes I didn't even go to school the next day because of that. But then later on, I'd wanted to go to art school, and when I got to art school, I think there was a slight, because I had already had a sort of network of friends and musicians. I already had a little band in London. When I went to art school, I didn't really connect in the way that I thought I would. And I also had a band. I had a few people I was playing with. And so my focus still was really on music. But I was sort of thinking, this is the thing that will please my dad, certainly, getting a graphics degree or whatever. But yeah.
Tell me the first song you ever buying from a record shop, please, Louis.
that again is very difficult to recall. I really find it quite difficult to recall. I don't know whether it was like when I was very young, I was quite into sort of like rock and roll, 50s kind of rock and roll and stuff that I'd heard through, going back to my fixing the bicycle with my friend in his garden. His mum was a big Elvis Presley fan, and so that would often be playing. And so I think that definitely had some influence. But I can't remember buying those records. Maybe I had some that were bought for me, and then the big sort of boom in things I liked, contemporary stuff, was the sort of two-tone kind of movement. But I'm trying to think of an actual moment of buying a record, and actually one came to mind, which was a Curtis Mayfield record. And this is actually, I was like 15 or 16 by this time, and I'd heard "Move On Up" covered by the Jam, and subsequently heard Curtis Mayfield's version, and just thought, God, I've got to I've got to hear more of this. And I think, it's going back to that thing we were talking about before. You couldn't really, without streaming services, you finding these things was quite difficult. And I went to the record and tape exchange looking for "Move On Up" and the record on the Curtis album that it's on. I didn't, anyway, they didn't have it, but they had "Back to the World," which I thought, well, I'll get that, I'll get that. And, I loved everything about it. I loved the cover. It had this sort of screen printed sort of collage-y sort of cover. And then and the first song, it's called "Back to the World," and it's actually it's quite a dark, well, it's quite a serious subject matter. It's about a guy in Vietnam, and he's comes back, and he's comes back to America, and there's whatever, there's nothing for him there. It's a very sort of welcoming reception, having sort of been out fighting for his country, or sort of risking his life or whatever. And I think what's so brilliant and beautiful about that record, and about a lot of Curtis Mayfield actually, is this sort of ability to sound joyous and have quite serious. It's a protest song, but joy. It's not earnest. It's not sort of it's it's so listenable. It just pulls you in, and it's got this magic. And I love that. I love that record. I still do. But I also remember, I love that tune so much, and it's the first tune that I barely got through the rest of that side. And I'd taken one night, I was tripping very extremely, just on magic mushrooms. I must have been 15 or 16 or whatever. And I'd been with friends, I think. Anyway, I was back at my mum's. I guess she wasn't there because it was light. It must have been 5 a.m. or something. And I put on this record, which I thought, was so happy and joyous. And I was very, very happy. And I was lying in bed. And I guess I sort of drifted off. And when I came round, it had got to the end of that side. And at the end of that side, it's got a song called "Right On for the Darkness." And the end of "Right On for the Darkness" is the most tense, sort of orchestral, dark, kind of weird, it's not joyous, it's pretty heavy. And I just came round to that, and I was like, and it just seemed to go on forever. And I was like, I just thought, I couldn't understand what was going on, because I thought, I never heard this before. I've never, like, what's going on? And time seemed to stand still. Anyway, I guess the long and the short of it is that it put me off tripping, but it didn't put me off Curtis Mayfield.
Yeah. Curtis Mayfield's got a fantastic song called "Tripping Out," actually.
Yes, he has.
It's a fantastic record.
Yeah.
I mean, what you referenced the album cover, And then you also referenced two-tone, and you mentioned you studied graphic design, and the branding around two-tone was fucking ridiculously cool.
Yeah.
And that Curtis Mayfield sleeves, so slick. And I just was interested because the thing that I loved about two-tone was just the sort of consistency of branding. And when we talk about the pros and cons of streaming services, I think one of the things that's lost, and I've referenced this a few times, is the album artwork.
Yeah.
And when you pick up them coffee table books of the greatest sleeves of all time, there's nothing on there from the last 10, 15 years, because it kind of, I guess, went with the CDs. And what I liked to reference Rialto there was the consistency, and it all looked, you know, for me growing up with the Smiths and the two-tone thing, I liked things that were like uniformed, and it felt there was that consistency. Did you have input in that?
No, that came. I mean, you know, we worked with people, but it was that came. You know, I was very aware of the need to just focus in on. I sometimes think that the difficulty, perhaps, growing up was like not, you're blowing about in the wind, not wondering what you're going to be, what sort of music are you going to do, what's your thing, and it takes a while to sort of just go, okay, I can bring all these things into this one funnel, and I hope we did that with Rialto, but it was an important thing, and I think I agree. All that two-tone stuff was fantastic, and it made you feel, without it being exclusive remotely, it was the least exclusive movement, but it kind of gave you a badge to wear, that it was that sort of specific visually.
And I think another thing that I liked about that and the bands on that, and I think, I was looking today at some sort of press shots of Rialto, and that you look like a gang, and I think that's so important in bands. I think you look back at the specials, you look back at Dexys and Madness and all of them sort of formative years, and they look like a gang, and I think that's such an important, for me, I love that. Do you know what I mean?
I do, I do, and I think particularly when you're growing up as a certainly as a boy, you have some of those kind of you want to be part of the gang, want to be part of that gang, and there's I kind of had that with the Clash a bit, I suppose, as well. They felt like that. Sometimes the music was good, sometimes it was a bit patchy, but there was something about them being a proper gang. And I think a song that I loved growing up as well actually was "Stay Free" by the Clash, which is a kind of song version of that, of what we're talking about, in a way, which is it's not a romantic, it's not a song about love, it's a platonic song about a male friend, which is quite a rare thing to write about and also to get away with. But I think Mick Jones did that absolutely brilliantly, and I'm all for that. That kind of gang thing, and that sort of knowing what your look is about. Cool.
Let's go clubbing. Louis, tell me the song that soundtracked your years in clubs.
I mean, I'm still going. That's really difficult because my probably my favorite club ever was a club called Smashing, which was ran sort of for the first half of the 90s probably, and it ended up for a couple of years at least in a fantastic venue off Regent Street called Eve's, and it had this sort of lit up dance floor, and it was like a forgotten venue that had been some kind of something that had been left over from, I guess, the 70s or something, and they played a completely eclectic mix of music. But the first sort of clubbing thing that I got into, I suppose, was places like the WAG in London and the warehouse parties and
what was
finger pop and sort of
what was happening at the WAG? then.
Well,
Right?
there was a mixture of stuff, but I think that the thing that I'm talking about, the clubs that I was drawn to, or certainly sort of just sort of seemed to get caught up in the kind of music that I felt attached to and drawn to, or whatever, or ended up with friends, was what then became known as rare groove, and it was all these sort of records from things that hadn't been very big hits, and the DJs found these old, basically kind of funk records from the early 70s, mainly in late 60s, and I don't know, I just sort of, I felt, I had some interest in that sort of music anyway, but it seemed to be quite an inclusive sort of movement, and it was just pre sort of acid house and stuff, I suppose. It was that age where I was just starting to go out to clubs, and so I picked this song, Across the Tracks, which seemed to be played at a lot of those kind of parties. Some parties, sometimes warehouse parties, sometimes regular club nights at the Africa Centre in Covent Garden. It was probably quite a brief moment of a year or two, I suppose, and then it was just prior to the sort of explosion of house music and stuff, which I also would club. Throughout that, my brother was really into acid house, and we did a lot of we went all over the place to sort of illegal raves sort of things, where you meet at the service station and stuff, and pre-mobile phones, really. It's like pull up a number and you'd be somewhere in wherever it might be, somewhere. We'd end up in Coventry or under a flyover in Bristol, or I don't know. But I didn't really connect with that club scene as much as the one that I really connected to was the one I started talking about first, which was Smashing.
Yeah.
Met a lot of friends there, and it felt like a place where anything could be played, and there were no really extended remixes or anything like that. It was sort of, everything felt like it was on a 7-inch, and it might be a film soundtrack, or it might be a new wave record, or it might be a disco record, or it was pop music, really, I guess, in a kind of unashamedly sort of eclectic way, but it was very difficult to pick a song from that because it was so eclectic.
Yeah.
I think Cross the Tracks sums up that sort of late 80s kind of period when I first started going.
And as somebody that's been a club promoter for 30 years, to have a night where you can play whatever you want and have the success that Smashing had, I mean, that's not easy to do. And that's still the that is the goal. If you can have that night where there is no genre, you can just play fucking great records from wherever. I don't know if that'll ever happen again. I don't know. For me, like, club culture is so different there. And I mean, what do I know? I'm a 50-year-old man, but like, I still work in clubs every week, and I just, I'd give anything to be able to have a night where you can do that and it be.
I think the magic of that club for me anyway was partly the music, but it was also, it just happened to be a sort of meeting of lots of different people, and and I don't know how I heard of it, but it seemed to just attract some like-minded people. There were quite a few people from bands that went there. There were just interesting people that maybe weren't dressing exactly in the most, it felt like it had a lot of individuals and a kind of very inclusive sort of atmosphere. So I think it was the people that ran it that brought this special thing as much as the music, and there was silliness to that as well. Like, there was a silliness at that club, and they'd had live bands sometimes, and it just felt, I'm not a club promoter, but I guess it's about making people feel like they're having a bit of a party, and it's a social. The music wasn't, there were booths. The music wasn't so loud that you couldn't talk. You could definitely meet and chat to people, and it's that feeling like you could probably talk to anybody in there because you're all part of the, of a similar sort of like-minded kind of outlook.
Absolutely. I'm interested. Obviously, I touched earlier on asking you, about confidence, and obviously post Rialto, you've made a lot of music. You've been part of some incredible bands, touring with some absolute legends as well. Would you say you're driven?
Yeah, I'm definitely driven to make what I'm doing good, whether on whatever level that is. I want it to be good. I definitely want it to be good. I don't feel like I'm massively brilliant at I've been involved with the festival quite a long time, promoting and stuff, and all booking and curating is an awful word for it, but that's kind of what my job was. But that was related, I guess, to music in some ways. And I think that whatever I'm working on, I have a sort of a quite a perfectionist kind of thing going on. Yeah, even if I'm just in the pub gig, I'm good.
Yeah. I'm going to take you home for track 6. Favorite song from an artist from your home county, please.
So, I've spent most of my life in London, but my dad's side of the family's from Cornwall, and I spent, quite a long time there as well, on and off. There are so many London artists that I thought I'd pick a Cornish artist, and I was quite surprised. And it's a bit tenuous, but Andy Mackay from Roxy Music, who I've never been a massive fan of Roxy Music. I've got more into them recently, actually. He's from Cornwall. There are about 5 people from bands from Cornwall. I think Roger Taylor from Queen, Aphex Twin, maybe I should have picked him. There aren't many, though. There aren't many. But I did recently discover that he was from a place called Suede in Cornwall. Yeah. So I've picked that partly as a kind of partly I picked Love Is a Drug by Roxy Music, and that's also partly to for me to mention what you've just mentioned is Playing with Grace Jones, who does a version of that, and it's I guess I love that song because I get to play it with Grace. I love the Roxy version, but I really love Playing with Grace Jones, and I love seeing her do that tune. And she puts on the glittery bowler hat, and they have a laser light on her head, and it doesn't get much more fun than that, playing the guitar, than having somebody like that as your sort of a band leader.
Yeah, it gets no cooler than that. I mean, how did that gig come about?
It came about through, as many things do. It's more than one thing happening, isn't it? I mean, it was a combination of things from playing. I mean, the most exciting, perhaps the best version I can tell you is that I was playing at a wedding, and it was my cousin's wedding. He's in music as well. The wedding band was, as at a lot of other weddings, family members or whatever, or mates who can play. It was just it was a bunch of mates playing some songs. But Grace Jones happened to be coming to the wedding, and we had Pull Up to the Bumper ready to go, and we thought, wouldn't it be amazing if Grace got up and did it? I think we front loaded our set so that we'd sort of get her interest and sort of see her there. And anyway, it happened. She jumped up and sang Pull Up to the Bumper with us. And
mate, you're going to all the right weddings. Jesus, man.
I mean, well, like that. If they were, I'd have played with many other. But It was amazing. It was amazing. I was beaming. The tent was jumping. It was just like, this is the most fun ever. And so I let that be known afterwards. And I knew, I knew her producer, and I knew a couple of people in the band I'd previously been in a band with in my late teens. I'd very briefly been in a band with a couple of the guys who were in Grace's band. I put it out there. If you ever need a guitar player, thought nothing of it. About 4 or 5 years later, they did. And I guess those little things just fell into place, and they asked me, and it was sort of 2 days rehearsal, and you're off to Australia. Luckily I had a fair amount of time to do some homework before and learn my stuff. And I've been with her ever since, and that was 13 years ago. So
fantastic.
Yeah, it is a real lucky one.
Absolutely. Right, it's your last track, and this is where you get to be a tastemaker, or as the youngers call it, influencer. Tell me a song that you think many of my listeners may not know that you would like them to hear, please, Louis.
Well, I've chosen Children of the Empire by Wife's Blood. Now, I looked it up on Spotify, and actually it's had countless millions of streams, so maybe everybody does know it, but I don't know what that means these days, how many streams you've got.
Yeah.
Certainly I've been introduced her music to other friends of mine, and they've not heard it before, but I love her stuff, and I suppose I'm always drawn to things that have a sort of almost like a dichotomy within them, if that's the right word. Meaning, there's a kind of jauntiness to some of her music, and it's really melodically interesting, and chords-wise, it interests me, or it grabs me, because it's not it takes you on a journey, but there's some melancholy in the lyrics, but it's that mix of the melancholy and sort of joyousness that she's got, and I can listen to her all day and all night.
Fantastic. Well, we make it easy for people to go and check that out, and all the other songs that you've chosen, Luke. We put together a little Spotify playlist to accompany the pod, and obviously your music will be on there as well. So let's talk your music. So Rialto, they've played shows, and there's shows coming, right?
Yeah, we've got the next one is the next London one is Manchester is the 3rd of April at the Deaf Institute, and we're going to play at the Moth Club in London 5th of April. We just played a show a couple of weeks ago in London that was sold out in a flash, which was really, I don't know what the word is, pretty great for us. I mean, it was lovely. It was a very nice feeling. And it's been really, really fun revisiting those songs, and actually playing a couple of new ones in the set, and the response has been really good. And it feels like the time to be doing it, and it seems to be I think there's many years where I wouldn't consider doing it, but it feels like the right thing at the moment. And
how did it come about then?
We've been approached over the last few years by a couple of different promoters about playing, and somehow there wasn't really I guess it just took them knocking on the door a few times to actually go, for us and me to go, like, actually, you know what, that might be fun. And it's coincided with me writing some new songs that I thought, okay, these songs are more Rialto than anything I've written before, since the original records. So it all just seemed to tie in. It seemed like, okay, this all.
What's going to happen with them new songs? You going to record them?
Well, they've gone down well at the shows, and there's been a bit of recording going on. And
wonderful.
Yeah, we'll see. I think, touch wood, there might be something new.
And so does your touring schedule with Grace allow for some festival shows for Rialto this year?
Yeah, it does, and I think I hope I can kind of juggle those two quite easily. Luckily, Grace isn't a sort of back-to-back touring person. She likes to do a show and then take a little. She's certainly not a sort of 6 nights a week artist, and we'll see what the demand is for Rialto. But so far, it's been really it's been very nice.
It's lovely to hear, mate. Louis, if people want to keep up to speed with what you're doing and I guess essentially Rialto at the moment, where's the best place to keep up to speed with tour dates and such?
So there's for those people that are on Instagram, there's Rialto Official, Rialto Official. There is my own Instagram, which is just Louis_Elliott, 1 L and 1 T. And then there's a rialtomusic.com website with all our dates on as well. The usual places really, but Facebook and Instagram, you can find us. And the Instagram I think they've both got links to all the other stuff as well.
And if it's cool with you, I'll tag you in it when this episode drops, so the listeners, if they're not following you already, can go and do so and get along to the shows. I will 100% be at the Moth Club, and I can't wait to see it. I'm going to press stop, Louis, but don't go anywhere.
Thanks.